Hello and welcome to your Patreon exclusive episode of Predictocast for the month of March, Rue McClanahan March. And you know what we do here. We're talking about a exciting movie. If you've been following along on the main feed, we are finishing up the month of Rue with the best in the series, hands down, Mother of the Bride from 1993. This follows Children of the Bride and Baby of the Bride. And my God, I'm kind of upset that only the Patreons get to hear this because I'm so excited to be talking about this movie.
I'm at a kind of a cross feeling about this. I feel bad about taking away from people who've been following along with us. I don't know how people that is, but anyone who decided to watch all three movies and to finally get to the best one and not have like us talking about it, to have that conversation in your head about it that you have with podcasters. But hey, if it gets even one new patron to our feed, we may need it because the world's falling apart. But
the world's falling apart, and I need to talk about this goofy fucking movie for a while. It's weird. I think that it's this weird thing of it's the third in the series, and we've been watching these in pretty rapid succession. And I kind of like everybody now. Like, I like the characters, and I'm very interested in what's going on with them.
I hit the end of this, and I was like, I know for a fact that's it. I will never see these characters again, and I needed a fourth movie. Like, honestly, if there was another one, I would gladly watch it, even if we weren't talking about it. I know, like I had really gotten, because the characters are so flat at the start, and I know them so well at this point, to the point where like we're Andrew, and if you're following along with us, you know who all these characters are. Andrew shows up like an hour into this movie, and I'm like,
he's barely in the movie.
I need more Andrew. I need these characters.
He's barely in the movie, and when he shows up, I was like, oh yeah, he has not been in the movie until now.
Another amazing thing, and this is just based on portrayal, the amazing ability that Rue McClanahan de-aged throughout this entire series.
Everybody looks younger.
Annie looks like, okay, in this movie, Annie looks like 6 from Blossom, and she's dressed like her, and she looks like a little girl.
Yeah.
She has like, everyone's wearing a fucking vest. Everyone in this movie is wearing a goddamn vest. And she's got big hats and big bows and tights, and everyone has tights. And she is 6 from Blossom. Blossom's awesome. And my God, Christy McNichol as Mary, there's times where she looks 12.
Yeah, everybody looks so young. Even Andrew looks younger than he did in the first movie. The first movie is like sort of haggard looking, and then you see him in this and you're like, did he de-age? Rue McClanahan has looked younger through the series. Like, in the second movie, we commented when we first saw her in her nightgown when she was seducing John. It was like, whoa, she looks younger. And it was like, oh, maybe it's her haircut or something. And then in this one, both she and Ted Shackelford look younger.
It's amazing. Like, the first movie, she's played so like, oh, I'm just your mother. I'm an older lady. And like, from the point that she uppercuts a person in that first movie onward into the next movie, she is just like, she's becoming more capable, more active, more sexual. She's so much more alive each movie. There is one exception to this rule, and that is Dennis V3, who, because Ted Shackelford's John now seems younger. He now seems younger than Dennis.
He's hanging out with his buddy Dennis and their baseball team.
Here's the thing, like we talked about in the first movie, and we were hoping by the second movie they wouldn't have to go through the rigmarole of introducing us to the characters again. We hit the ground running, and each movie we had some interplay between the different characters of conflict and trying to get a new status quo between them as all their stations in life changed. In this movie, the main characters are all just so buddy. I love it. They've all figured out the dynamics between them. They've gotten out all the conflicts between them. All the conflicts
that's
are now
what it is. That has to be what it is. They have to bring in these new characters to create conflict because they've already sort of dealt with the family issues.
Yes, Richard and Ken and Beatrice are brought in to have outside conflict, because inside conflict, they get along fine. The entire movie, there's no conflict between any of the siblings between each other. They're all best friends.
Yeah, there's a lot of dropped plot threads, which I was hoping we'd get. Like, Dennis never gets any sort of comeuppance, and in fact, he seems like a really upstanding guy now.
He's not a playboy anymore. He's an old man now.
He does hire some strippers for a bachelor party, but that's really tame in comparison. And then when these sex workers show up, he's very angry. He
is the moral upstanding person standing up at this. Oh, it's so like he's not the Dennis of 2 movies ago.
It's very bizarre, and it feels like he's just a totally different character because it's a different actor,
and also he's like 7 feet tall versus everybody else.
He is a very big man. Okay, let's get into this. We get an opening that feels noticeably cheaper. It's like these cutout paper dolls over a crayon-colored background.
Come on, though. Cartoon John is the best character in the whole fucking movie.
Where she is going through the story of her life, talking about all of the things that happened, how she had a husband, he left, she raised her family, then she met a new man, now she has a child, and her daughter, who also has a child, lives with them now, and they also live in a new house?
It's so weird that they would keep the same house for 2 movies, and the third one they have a different house.
Because you don't have to show them outside it, because they never do. So they could just show footage of the old house again. You don't have to see them. Like, you could fake anything else.
It's weird because every house in this movie, much like the first 2 movies, this is 1991 through 1993, the whole series. Everyone's house is still an old lady's house. It's your aunt's house from 1993.
Yeah.
So like, they all look the same
But also
inside.
It's much bigger, too. It feels massive compared to where they were in the first 2 movies, and they never comment on it. In fact, it's the same house, like in terms of the story, but like it looks very different. Because in the first movie, when we talked about Dennis going over and fucking that married woman next door, their house is like right there. They can just walk over the yard right to this person. And in the new house, it's this massive house with like woods along one side of it, so you can't even see the neighbors.
It's such a weird choice. There's little choices that are different in this one, but at the same time, like, it's so weird to have a huge house, because in the other movies, people who didn't need big houses didn't have big houses. Like, people lived in apartments. The girls in the second movie lived in a smaller place. Like, just, Dennis lived in a apartment condo penthouse thing. Now, like, even Ken has a gigantic house with so much wood paneling. He lives in an old lady's house, and I don't understand why.
Yeah,
and we have so much to say about Ken.
We do. Okay, so this is immediately right out of the gate on this movie. I was very confused about the timeline because
it makes no sense. It makes because if they had kept Andrew's kids off screen the entire movie, it may have worked.
Well, okay. How much time has it been? It's been a couple of years, right? It has to, because the kids are like 2 or 3 years old.
The kids it's weird, because they're like, okay, now these babies are a certain age and they are going to daycare. And I'm like,
yeah. And
they don't show them for a little bit. And they're in the backseat, you don't see them. But when you finally see them, they're talking kids. They're walking kids. They are at least 2 years old.
Yeah, but then Margaret like jumps out of bed at the beginning of the movie, and she's excited because it's been 3 months and she can go back to work.
That's
what?
They act like it's been 3 months and she can go back to work because that's.
But her
the
baby was
leave.
Born premature.
Mm-hmm. And her baby is now 2 years old.
I don't understand how this works. I mean, maybe they were just thinking like, well, we can't have 2 small babies on set all the time, so we're just gonna fake it and hopefully no one notices.
But at the same time, you could so easily just say like, the last movie was in 1991. This is 1993. the kids are 2 years older.
Yeah, I think that's what it's supposed to be, but the way that she wakes up excited to go back to work is huh?
I don't understand. And she's a real estate person, which she was always that in the other movies.
Yes, she was, but they never talk about it.
And now it's very much talked about.
Yeah, now it's very much talked about. She mentions a property in the second movie when she gets a call from Dennis, and he's saying he's coming to visit because he lost his job. But she never goes into any real... Like, she gets a call, and she's like, oh, yes, that's our property. Well, I'll come take a look. And that's the only thing you hear about it. And this one, her being a real estate agent is very important to the plot.
A couple of things really off the top. The two babies are... Margaret number 2, Margaret the second, who is Maggie, that is Maggie, Mary's daughter, and John and Margaret's son is Robert, not Rob, not Bobby, Robert.
Yeah,
not a baby name. They always call him Robert.
Good job, baby Robert.
The other funny thing is right from the start, because in the second movie, it's all in the first movie, honestly, too, even though it's two different John Hicks's. As far as portrayal, a lot of the stuff is John having conflict and just not really liking the kids. He doesn't want a family. He just kind of wants to be with Margaret. Her older kids are in the way. Doesn't want a baby in the second one. Wants her to get rid of the baby in the second one. In the very, very, very end of the movie, he's like, okay, baby's born. I want to be the father. That's great. Ted Shackelford very good in these movies. This movie, right from the start, him and all the kids are like fucking, they are buddies. Because I thought like, okay, Mary's moved in with him with her baby, and he has a baby.
And she works with him.
And like, maybe there'll be some conflict. Like, before he's like not like being crowded by the children. No. Him and Mary are best of friends.
Yeah, well, I kind of like that, though. I think it is the thing we already mentioned. Like, it's been 2 years. It has to have been 2 years. So they have gotten very close, and they're very comfortable with each other. And so now there's all these outside forces that are coming in to, like, potentially threaten it. One, basically, in particular. And he's sort of, kind of fighting against that. But he doesn't care. I mean, he loves the family now. Like, he's best friends with Dennis, and he's, he likes Mary, and he tolerates Anne and wants to help her find love and all this stuff. So it's like really interesting the way they actually show a progression for that character. Yeah,
if you didn't even pretend for a second like it was 3 months, which doesn't make any sense. It's like 2 years.
It's not 3 months, and I'll explain why in just a minute.
Yeah, because it's 2 years. He's lived with Mary for 2 years. They have raised what are basically twins for 2 years together. They have gone through nights up. They have gone through diapers. They've done it all, and they are at that comfortable level of we've seen it all. We live together. We love these. We both love these children as our children.
Yeah, exactly.
And so like they're dropping them off at daycare, and they're like a couple. But like, not in a romantic way, but like, they're just two people who live together who are raising kids together, and they are completely comfortable with each other, and they're on exactly the same wavelength. And it's like, oh, this is the warm blanket that this series has been leading up to, because you get to learn these characters, get through their fights, and now they're just happy to be together. Like, we're happy to be with them.
Yeah, they have bonded over all of these other things, so now they can kind of come together and close ranks and protect the family from any outside usurpers that might try to come in and disrupt things.
Which does happen in ridiculous ways, and we have them taking this great station wagon with wood paneling, because wood paneling is everywhere in this fucking movie, to the daycare, and oh my god. Let's talk about Ken.
Yes, well, we get our first appearance of motorcycle dad, Ken, who rides in around their station wagon, kind of dangerously, a little reckless in his maneuvering, and he pulls up and he hops off his bike, and there's a little kid on the bike with him, his son is wearing a helmet. And he's just he's a cool looking dude. Looks like a character out of Wet Hot American Summer.
He facially looks so much like Adam Scott wearing a wig that I could not get past it the entire movie. I couldn't take him seriously as a character, which you can't anyway, with his little feathers in his hair and his hair.
His weird Native American feather hair pieces and earrings and stuff. And it's like, what is this guy doing? Is there some cultural appropriation happening here?
Well, he's supposed to look like what white America thinks a gang guy looks like. Because later, like, Annie of all characters is like, he's in a gang. He's gonna.
Oh yeah, where she instigates or she insinuates that like Mary's gonna have to gangbang all of his like motorcycle buddies,
Mongo and Snake, I think she says. But like at the same time, it's just this guy wearing a headband and it looks like Adam Scott wearing this big fucking like 80s rocker wig, and it's ridiculous. He's so ridiculous looking. I laughed every time my wife Jody, who's been on the show, walked by and saw his hair. She's like, "Look at that guy's hair."
Yeah, it's like perfect early 90s kind of crazy long weird hair. And it's sort of mullety, but not exactly. It's kind of feathered up, sort of Billy Ray Cyrus-y in a way, but not that like sculpted or shaved down on the sides. Like it's just a weird combination of all kinds of things going on.
Here's the thing, like, yeah,
but he looks fucking cool.
he does. I mean, like, here's the thing though. If he's supposed to be like, they act at times like he's supposed to be dangerous, and he is. But this movie follows a series of just awful meet cutes between male characters, basically negating women into relationships. But when he has his formal dinner with her, which I also don't like how he set that up either. Like, I can't be afraid of a guy who takes his fashion tips from Richard Marx.
He does look so much like Richard Marx. You're totally right.
And here's the thing. When he's going after Mary, he simply will not give up until he is satisfied.
Yeah, he's very tenacious in his pursuit of her.
It's what he does, and he does a line we'll talk about when it happens, but I'd say right before I forget it, like he says, "Don't tell me you didn't love it." Anytime a guy says that to a girl, it is fuck that. That is basically that is abuse. It's just, you can't do that. You can't
it's
force a woman
rough
to do something and then at the end go, you loved it. Like, I don't care what it is. It involves physicality or anything. It's a problem.
Yeah. Speaking of guys who really overstep their bounds when it comes to women, we see how Annie and Nick have been doing. She wakes up one morning and goes out to find a policeman's barbershop quintet, I guess, like on her lawn.
Yeah, policeman barbers, acapella group.
Yeah.
I hate when police officers do other things like this. Just don't have side bands. They had a band of the police near me when I grew up had a band they would send out to schools to sing songs about safety, and they were called
the Mounties.
No, these were police officers, not the mounted police, the federal police. These were the local police, and their band name was Blue Thunder.
No, sorry, you can't be a Blue Thunder unless you fly an airplane.
Yeah, and they were literally the joke of the city among all youth. Like, there wasn't a single kid I knew in existence who thought Blue Thunder was cool.
Yeah, I mean, these guys are just out there. They're singing some wonderful little songs, and then they're gonna go oppress some minorities.
Also, like, she just woke up. She's got bedtime mouth. You know what I mean? Like, she hasn't brushed her teeth. She hasn't done anything yet. She probably has to take a piss. And there's police officers outside singing at her. Yeah,
and Nick is there, and he says happy anniversary, or he says, do you know what day it is? And she goes, well, it's Monday. And he says, you really don't know?
It's Christmas morning.
I bought you that goose in the window. And he says, it's the 2-year anniversary of the day he pulled her over. So that's why it has to have been at least 2 years.
Right. And that makes sense. So basically,
But what has Margaret been doing for the last 2 years?
Margaret
Been
has
taking it
finally
easy.
finished. America apparently back in the heady days of 1993, instead of shaming pregnant women who have just given birth and are afraid to put their children in the care of other people while they're still so young and vulnerable, America was better. They had a 2-year and 3-month maternity leave.
Apparently. But he says it's their anniversary, and he asks her to marry him, and she, of course, says yes. And the quintet a cappella group goes wild. They sing another couple songs. It's wonderful. It's also incredibly embarrassing. And public proposals, even if they're on your front lawn, should not involve people singing at you. Just do that shit privately and then go celebrate with your friends.
This is interesting because this is the taming down of Annie. That is like the character, the greatest character arc in the entire series is Annie's hair, as it has grown out and changed throughout time. But the second one is like Annie is a hot-headed, snappy mouth firebrand for the first 2 movies, and unpredictable and angry about anything that she doesn't expect to happen. She takes this very well, which Annie in the other 2 movies would have been like, what are you doing? I'm being put on the spot. I hate commitment. Let's get out of here. Yeah. But now she's like, cool. It's great. She doesn't have cold feet until literally near the end of the movie, where her character has a moment that her character would never have, which is plot dependent.
Yeah, and they don't linger on it too long. They wrap it up in the next scene.
Yeah, like she literally, the next scene is, this movie's really great for shit like that.
Yeah. So we get a little bit more with motorcycle dad Ken here. At the daycare, Mary is taking pics of her kid. She's like kind of checking out the child, making sure that it's enjoying its time. And the guy comes over, and he's immediately interested in her. And she tries to explain kind of the whole lineage. Like, the girl is my daughter, the boy is my brother, and the guy in the car is not my husband. He's my stepdad. And he's like, oh, and your mother's your sister. And and he tries to kind of flirt and says, well, I'll give you a ride to work on my motorcycle, because she's like, well, I got to go to work. And he's like, well, I'll give you a ride on the motorcycle. And she's like, no. And that starts sort of their flirtation of this whole thing. And you can already tell, like, okay, they're going to end up together, basically.
Oh, there's no way they aren't. Like, this movie never even pretends for a second that it isn't exactly the path you expect it to go. Not for 1 second.
Yeah, but it's interesting because it's like, when we're first introduced to Mary, she is a nun. She's leaving the ministry or habit or whatever. I don't know what the service, what is it called?
I would have had it if you hadn't said like 15 other words.
The lifestyle.
It never comes up in the second movie, really, that she was a nun.
Her calling.
Anymore.
Whatever.
her calling, yes. But it's back in a full effect this time. They finally do give more of a background to her having the baby.
Yeah.
And the father.
They do talk about that a little bit, but it's weird.
It's very weird how she says it, considering it's so transactional, which it would have been, but it does not fit this character to have a transactional thing. Yeah, but I was just going to say it's interesting to see kind of her arc. The first movie she's a nun, and then the second one she's dealing with, she's a nun and then pregnant, and then the second one she's dealing with being pregnant and then has the child, and then this one she's like, I have the child and now I'm finding a person who can be with me or who I want to be with, and this is like really my first time being with a person, like dating someone or being in a relationship. So it's really interesting to kind of see how it all works for all of these characters, like the different things that have happened for them. I think maybe that's why I like this one so much, is because we're sort of seeing additional things about them, and
we're kind of closing out their story, even though I feel like there could have been more stories to tell with these characters.
I think what this movie also does that is very smart. Besides, like, Andrew's a good character, but Andrew's arc is kind of done.
Sort of. I mean,
Dennis,
we don't know what happened with his ex-wife and the kids. I mean, we assume everything worked out.
And it's been 2 years. He still has the kids.
Yeah, he's not in jail, so I think they didn't run to Canada.
There's a 2.5 movie that happened that we don't know about, but he's like,
they should release like a web comic or something, that a motion comic on the internet that explains what happened between the second and third movie.
But as far as the movie is considered, his arc is done. Dennis does not have an arc.
We don't even see him at the jewelry store.
No.
Why did they not bring him in to be like, oh yeah, Nick came to me to find your ring at the jewelry store that I work at. I helped him pick out something really good for you. That would have been a great line, and it would have called back to the connection that Dennis and Annie had in the first movie. And in this one, I don't think they even share any scenes together until the end.
No. So like the movie does kind of focus in on Margaret, Mary as the top two, who are the biggest stars in 1993, Chris McNichol and Rue McClanahan.
Yeah.
And then Annie, John, and then the guest stars.
Yeah, kind of.
It kind of like focuses in on them. And, you know, to be fair, they are the more interesting actors of the bunch. And then John is kind of a facilitator to cycle other characters in and out of the scenes.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of John, he and Margaret are at a restaurant waiting for Anne and Nick. And Margaret seems to know what the lunch is about. She has a feeling, but she doesn't want to tell John in case she's wrong. But she's got a little smile on her face. Yeah, John's dumb. It's one of two things. Either Anne is pregnant or they're getting married. It can't really be anything else.
Nothing else. Why? Because Anne's not a person who is going to pay for lunch for anybody, let alone a nice meal.
Yeah. So they show up at the restaurant, and before they approach, Nick stops Anne. He's like, "Hey, look, I want to tell them. I want to, I want to lay it out right." And she's like, "Okay, fine." And then she goes up, and I actually liked this moment a lot. I laughed. She screams, "He asked me!"
That was so great. It's so loud and so out of tone. This series likes to, in generally, keep it really almost, I would say like a soap opera quiet at times.
Yeah.
So when she screams this, I jumped.
Yeah, no, they cranked up the wackiness in this one. They're like, this is the third one. We're probably not going to do any more. Like, let's just go for it. And it's definitely the wackiest of the three.
So Annie, this is where Annie is most dressed like Six from Blossom.
Yes, she's got that hat on.
She's got that hat on. She's got bows. Like, there is a scene later in the movie where at her bridal shower where there is so much floral print in the room. It's unbelievable.
They had that leftover fabric that they had in the first movie.
Like, nothing's changed for that. It's only gotten worse. Like, grown ass adults wearing white tights with like knee length flower dresses, and they're not fucking sister wives. It makes no sense. But Annie goes, "I just want it to be small and informal. A small wedding, nice small and informal wedding, and that would equal no movie, so you know it's a lie." But remember, at this point, it is Annie's idea that the wedding is just a few people and is done quickly. She does not want a fancy wedding. Annie does not.
Yeah.
And Margaret says she is picturing a wedding full of white roses and mentions the word teal. And then John takes us to the act break with turning to Nick and says, "What's teal?" Because 1993 hasn't figured out all the colors yet.
Yeah, men didn't know colors back in the 90s. What's that color? What's the sky? I don't know.
And yet by like 1997,
I see everything in black and white.
1997,
right and wrong.
Dudes are wearing every color possible all at once, all of them.
Dudes were wearing teal in the 80s, so it's not.
It's such a weird masculine like trap thing here of like, what's teal? Could you have picked a different color? Like, literally anything.
Hey,
like,
Skinner, what's puce?
That, who can tell? That sounds foreign.
That is a color for sure. I just don't know what color it is.
Puce, I think it is probably a purple.
See, that's what I was going to say too. I was going to say puce is definitely a purple, and you're kind of right. It's a dark red, purple, brown. So probably or a dark reddish brown. So it's a shit color.
Oh man. And here we have somebody who works in graphic design, who makes wallpapers for a living.
Yeah, I didn't know what puce was.
But do you know what teal is?
Yes, I do know teal.
That's good.
I'm not that much of a man.
Your man meter just went a little bit down, says chive.com.
So we cut back to the budding relationship of Ken and Anne, and he asks her to come check out what he's made in this like room at the daycare facility. I don't know what he is showing her. Did I just not pay attention during the scene? What did he make? I know he's a carpenter, but like, what was it?
I don't know, because like he goes, he's like, come here. She's trying to avoid him, and he's like, come here. I'm gonna show you this stuff. Blank, blank, blank. He's putting on her motorbike.
Yeah, and then he grabs her and he makes her sit on his motorcycle. She's like, I've never even been on a motorcycle or something like that. And he's like, oh, well, you gotta. And so he makes her go and sit on it, and then she gets mad, and then he's like, well, now you got to go on a ride. And then he basically kidnaps her. And
I wrote down the words, he is basically kidnapping her.
Yes, that's exactly what my notes read. He basically kidnaps her. And then my next line is, the movie's now playing some rockin' butt guitar.
Which, in my head, because the movie, once again, in case you have forgotten from the first two movies, this series is scored.
No, actually,
by
it's
Yanni.
not. This one is not scored by him.
Oh, I wanted Yanni to be playing the guitar.
Yeah, I wish that it was, but it's done by some guy named Bruce Miller.
The Bruce Miller band?
Well, to be fair, I think that is a pseudonym for Yanni.
I just want it to be Steve Miller's little brother, Bruce Miller. The Bruce Miller band.
Bruce Miller, actually, he's had quite a long career. He was a saxophonist for Paul Anka. And then
that would explain some of the outros that are saxophones.
Yeah, and then he did arrangements for the Commodores, the Temptations, Rose Royce, a bunch of people, Four Tops, like Rod Stewart. He's worked on tons of things, and he did a bunch of TV series music. Frasier, Becker,
Chop Salad,
Designing
Tossed
Women,
Salads.
Wings. He might have done the tossed salad and scrambled eggs song. I need to look that up now because that's very important if that's the case.
Chop salad and poached eggs.
He is credited as the composer for Frasier for all 260 episodes.
I think we have someone who might be better than Steve Miller.
Well, I don't think that's very hard.
Well, I mean, let's let history decide that.
I'm thinking of the politics guy, right? Not the band guy.
Either one, if you want.
Oh, I was thinking of Stephen Miller, that awful little imp of a man.
Oh, the man who put the word foreign virus in a speech recently?
Yeah, that guy. That's who I was thinking of, not the leader of the Steve Miller band.
Now think about the Stephen Miller band.
Oh God, terrible. They'd only play that band on AM radio.
And all he's playing is covers of I'm Turning Japanese.
So they go out on this ride, and he brings her back, and she's very furious at him, rightfully so. She hits him and is pissed off. But then there's like this weird like moment of flirtation between them where they definitely seem to be hitting it off, and she seems to be kind of into him.
Yeah, but I don't love, because he does. This is where he does say, "Tell me you didn't love it," which is just, I hate when movies have guys do something to a girl and then say like, "Tell me you didn't love it," and then like they're like, "Ugh," and then like, "Yeah, I did." I'm like,
yeah, it's basically it's basically a guy basically saying, "I know what's best for you, so just like, do what I say."
And like in an even worse movie at this time would have a guy like hit on a girl at a club and then kiss her or grab her ass and then like be like, "You know you like it," and she'd be like, "You're right, because the male author of this movie says I do like it.
At home, we have Anne asking John to give her away at the wedding, which is a very sweet scene. John is very happy to do this, and he's very excited. I thought she was going to ask him to officiate since he's involved in the church, as we learned in the second movie, but no, that never comes up.
The church, in fact, for a movie about a wedding, the church never comes up.
Like,
in this
why?
movie.
Yeah, why would they not have it there?
Also, I forgot this happened because she asks him again later.
Well, she asked him again. She asked him the first time. She rescinds her offer and then asks him at the end because she wants to make things right. And the reason that she rescinds is about to walk into the movie like an agent of chaos. There's a knock at the door, and there's a man standing there. It's Paul Dooley holding a bottle of champagne. He's looking for Margaret. And this is Richard, Margaret's ex-husband, which I think we might have made a prediction about him maybe showing up at some point in this series, back when we were first starting this.
I think we did, and if you had to pick someone to be this character, who's going to sow this much chaos in this movie, you really couldn't do much better than Paul Dooley.
No, he's great in this. He's so over the top and goofy.
And if you don't know Paul Dooley, look him up. You do know Paul Dooley. Like, he is in everything. He's not known for a role. He is just in everything.
Like, undoubtedly, you have seen him or heard his voice in something. He's done a lot of voice work, but you have seen him in something or heard him in something.
Yes, like it is. Looking at his career, it is impossible you have not come across him if you have owned a television or have ears.
Yeah, he's
great in this role because he looks. Here's the important thing: the two characters who are bringing, because the other movies didn't do this, the two characters who are bringing strife and just movement to this family that is now kind of congealed finally after two movies, look nothing like them. Everyone else in this movie, especially in the second movie, they bring in two characters who look like all the other characters.
Yeah.
In this movie, the three characters they bring in to kind of bounce off them look like they're from a different universe. Yeah.
They're all very sort of cartoony, which fits the tone of the movie, I think.
Which I think fits the tone of the actors way better because they seem to be having way more fun.
Yeah. I mean, even when something horribly tragic happens, it's kind of played for a laugh. Like when
they have a line, they have a punchline when it happens.
Yes, and I'm glad that you know exactly the moment I'm talking about. We'll get to it in a second, but so he's there. He says that he read about the wedding, he read about the announcement, the engagement announcement, and he wanted to come and meet Nick and see his family. And he's like, I've never done anything for my kids. I was not, a great dad, but I want to be able to help with this wedding. Some investments that I've made are finally starting to pay off, and I would like to be able to help give my daughter a really good wedding. And it's like, okay, that's something. He's admitting that he maybe made some mistakes, but he would like to try to make up for them. And Anne seems pretty open to doing that. And we find out later that it's the only reason that she's sort of open to it is because she was basically too young to remember what things were like when Richard left. Like, the other kids were kind of standoffish. Denny blamed Margaret for him leaving. Andrew started taking on a lot more responsibilities, even though he was really young. Mary was very distrusting of people and wouldn't let her grandfather pick her up and was just very kind of distrusting of men, I guess. And so Anne just doesn't remember any of that. And Margaret's really upset, to have him back, but she's trying to sort of deal with it.
Here, as far as the arc of what Richard's going to go through, because he comes in here and he wants to make it up to the kids. He says his financial schemes are paying off. And
he doesn't say schemes.
Yeah, I know, but that is what.
I mean, spoiler, that is the subplot. Yeah,
that is the subplot
or subtext rather. Yeah, he
wants to help. He wants to help everyone out financially and be part of their life and part of the decisions. And he makes tons of bad decisions. But I always read it as he is bad at making decisions, but he legitimately did want to help out with everything. He legitimately wanted to be part of it again.
Yeah, it's weird because they don't ever fully come down on the fact that he is like fooling them or trying to get something over on them. It's just that he is not like, he's just not a good dude. And
he's not a good dude. He's not trustworthy, but in that way of like, you'll always have guys who overpromise you in your life at some point. Like if they're at a party or something, like, hey, come down we'll go on vacation sometime. I got a place down in Cabo. And
isn't this a story that happened to your family?
Kind of, yes. My father was kind of the person, except for my father generally backed it up generally.
Okay.
But like, like he was a bullshitter to get attention.
That's the perfect way to describe this dude, for sure.
But it doesn't, he's not trying to scam them. And he when they do the turn on him where they kind of build towards him being a certain way, and then it happens real hard. And it's not like he's doing it to hurt them. So when the thing happens at the end, and I hate being so vague, but it's what we do in the show, their reaction to it, I'm like, it's like, isn't it a little sad because he did love you guys?
Yeah, I think it's just that it took so long for him to try to make it right that I get where they're coming from, of like, well, he wasn't in our life for most of it, and now he's trying to get back into it, and then now he's not, and so it doesn't matter as much because nothing's really changed.
I liked Mara's reaction when she had a scene because it was very real and very honest.
Yeah.
But the rest of them just kind of laughing it off was a little
he dies. I mean, we
weird.
can just say it. We'll talk about how, but
he comically dies. Like,
yeah. I mean, he's not like swallowed by a whale or anything, but it's very silly. So we see Nick and Dennis here, and they're talking. I think this is the first time. Is this the first time we see Dennis in the movie?
I think so. It took me a little while to realize it was Dennis because I thought they would go with someone who wasn't seven.
It is actually the first time we see Dennis because it's not until the end of the scene. I knew who it was, but it's not until the end of the scene that someone calls him Dennis. So if you were watching this and you didn't know the actor changed, you'd be like, "Who is this?"
Because he looks older than John now, and like I said in the second movie episode, like, wow, John's just so much taller than everybody. This Dennis is now taller than him.
Yeah.
He
kind of regains some of the scrappy energy of the first Dennis a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. He does wear a vest at one point.
He feels like a natural progression of the Dennis from the first movie, whereas the Dennis in the second movie was just like such a weird meathead jock kind of guy that it felt very weird.
Yeah, he was more like a Vanderbeek. Like he had a big thick head, and this guy is like back to more of a. Well, he's huge. Like he's probably 6'3", but like he's kind of got more of a scrappy tendon strength.
Yeah,
tense guy. Like, but once again, like he's not anywhere near as philandering as Dennis in the other movies. Like anywhere near, because that was his only character trait.
Yeah, and that's basically he's just wrapped it up. He doesn't do that anymore, I guess.
And like I thought, okay, they're gonna give him someone to settle down with. My prediction of everyone gets married in the last movie. No, the boys are fine. They're just doing what they're doing.
But the problem is he also doesn't get that moment. He doesn't really get that moment with his dad to like have it out with him. Like
he does get angry at him twice.
He does, but he doesn't have that moment of like, and I guess that's how real life is in a way. You don't get the closure that you want all the time. So that when the guy dies suddenly, it's like, oh yeah, he doesn't get that closure that he might have wanted, where he could say something like, I turned out like you and I hate that. Like there's this thing of, yeah, my dad he went out on my mom and he dated all these other women and like I basically became my dad even though I hate him.
That's the funny thing, because at the start of the first movie, we have Annie saying, "You're just like Dad,"
Yeah.
and
He's talked to him too.
Yeah, and she mentions that she keeps going out with guys that are like Dennis and her dad, and how we have Dennis, who in that movie mentions he was married for a little while, but he couldn't settle down. That is never brought up again.
Yeah,
that he was ever married.
Like, I think
that is not a plot.
Yeah, I think this story would almost, like, we talked about it in the review, I think, that we read on the second movie, where I think we talked about it, I can't remember, but there was a review that basically said this would have really worked if there had been a series, like, where you could have explored these things. And I feel like this story, if it had been played out over a series of, 22 episodes, one, it would have been too long, but it would have also given them time to, like, build out these characters and actually hit these beats, But as a movie, it's like we only got so much time, so.
And the problem is like, especially like Chris McNichol and Rue McClanahan are very, very good television actors. Like, I want the show because they're very good at what they do. Like,
yeah, I would be interested in seeing the continued adventures of the Becker-Hicks clan.
Absolutely. And we're just never going to get it because Rue McClanahan's dead.
Yeah.
And most of them are still alive.
Pull a Grand Moff Tarkin and let's get that show going.
Okay. Speaking of Rue McClanahan dead in TV shows, do you think they like the character of Beatrice, the wedding planner, like they wrote that thinking that maybe they could get B. Arthur?
Oh, I mean, that would have been pretty funny, but I'm very happy with who they got. When we're about to talk about her.
We got the skeleton instead.
Yeah. So Nick and Dennis, they're chatting. Dennis wants to throw the bachelor party. And basically Anne is like, yeah, no strippers. And this is our first instance of Dennis seeing Richard. He shows up at the house, and Dennis is not happy. He kind of slams the door in his face and is like, yeah, I don't want to talk to you. And Mary is kind of trying to stand up for her dad a little bit. She's like, he could have let him in and tried to talk to him. But Dennis basically says, which is weird because it seems to go against him as a character, but he says people don't change. They just become more of themselves, more of who they already are.
This is when I thought he was going to have a moment with his dad later where he would have this, like,
they are setting it up for that, and it just never happens.
Because the things that are in Dennis that are like his dad are not in this movie.
Yeah, exactly.
He's just, and like, he's the oldest kid. I finally figured out who the
the lineage, order. Yeah.
Because they might as well be quadruplets, honestly.
Yeah, you can't really tell.
He's the oldest sibling, and he should be the one who turned out the worst because he got put in a role of parent of the younger siblings and rebelled against it.
But it sounds like that was Andrew who did that.
And instead they give that to Andrew.
Yeah.
And like there's so much to explore there, but it's not there.
Yeah.
In fact, not there is what Andrew is in this movie.
Yeah, he's barely there. In fact, I mean, we've already revealed that Richard dies. Andrew doesn't show up in the film until after Richard is dead.
Which is such an odd choice. Like, okay, we can play in the second movie, why is Andrew back? That makes no sense. He would only come, for a special occasion. Annie's wedding, right?
Yeah.
So I thought, like, okay, Annie's wedding, we're planning it, so we'll have Andrew show up with the girls because they'll be part of the wedding, forgetting the babies are big enough now to be Flower Girl and
those giant 3-month-old toddlers.
These giant 3-month-old toddlers. And I thought, like, okay, that will get him up. And then he doesn't show up. And then he doesn't show up. I'm like, when are we going to see Andrew with his dad? When are we going to see Richard, the dad, have scenes with Andrew's kids and have that dynamic and whatever? Because, it would be too much movie. And like, I was waiting for it. And I'm like, I know Andrew's in this movie because I've seen the cast listings. We're not doing a regular predictocast episode. So I know the actor is in all 3 movies. He's not written out. When the fuck is he getting here? And then gets to 1 hour and then Richard dies. I'm like, when is Andrew getting here? And he shows up for the funeral. I'm like, he's my favorite character. What is going on? But yet it makes sense. He does live far away. He does have a different life. We complain about the first two movies. He shouldn't be just showing up. And in this movie, he just doesn't.
Yeah. So they kind of, Dennis is sort of pissed off, and Mary's kind of soft on her dad, like, because she, doesn't totally remember everything either. And then we finally get to Beatrice, our wedding planner, who is this old woman who sort of looks a little skeletal, might be a witch, might also be just a rich old biddy who kills poor people for fun. Like, she just looks exactly how you think someone like that might look. And she's got these insane false teeth because you can hear them. Like, it feels like they're about to fall out of her mouth.
She is a character that isn't good. Like, she's when she basically turns on them for having no money later, you're like, of course she did. I never trusted this one. The fact that she does what she does to them is such a shit piece of business.
Yeah.
Of like not informing them until they come in. Like, she was in their house. She was there when a lot of the shit was happening. She knows like that they were talked into so much by Richard and that he's kind of outside their circle and they don't know what he's doing. That when his money thing falls through and she just like, well, I'm just going to sell the dress to somebody else and not tell them. It's like, you're a piece of shit. You are a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Pick up the phone and call.
You know what she did? I mean, she's done a ton of stuff. She was in the Harry and the Hendersons TV series.
Was she Harry or the Hendersons?
She was a doctor in a couple episodes. She's also been in, she was in Castaway. She was in Nightmare on Elm Street 3. The credit that jumped out to me the most, she was also on Golden Girls for a couple episodes.
So was Paul Dooley because he's on everything.
Yeah. But the credit that jumped out to me was she did additional voices in The Pirates of Darkwater.
Oh, I haven't thought about that in a long time.
Me neither.
Did she ever do any voices for the Cowboys of Moo Mesa?
I can't see that, but speaking of cowboys, she was in an episode of The Adventures of Briscoe County Jr. as Lil Swill.
What a unmarketable name for a show.
But yeah, she shows up and she's immediately this weird, flamboyant sort of character. And they're kind of arguing over the whole cake situation. Nick wants a chocolate cake. She is sort of demanding that a white cake be done because that's just tradition. And also, I know that I've been to weddings before where the groom has a chocolate cake and the full big cake is a white cake, right? Like, that's a thing, isn't it?
I've been to, not for a long time. Last few ones I've been to were the cupcake thing.
Oh, okay. Also, but I'm saying like that's not a thing that happened after this movie, right?
No, like this movie did not create that.
Yeah,
that's
so
just
have both.
I've just aged out of the whole like all my friends are already married. No offense, Josh.
No, that's fine.
So like,
I mean, if I have to stay quarantined for too much longer, I'm gonna be married to my hand. Ha ha. Rim shot.
Put that on the show. Some kind of shot, but I always I always forget that the whole culture exists till I'll like go to a younger relative's house and I have like save the date things on the fridge. I'm like, oh, people get married still. I'm just never invited anymore. I don't have any friends, or they're all dead.
I mean, if not now, soon. While they're sitting there arguing about cake, Richard shows up and he wants to see Margaret, and he says that he's looking to buy a house and he wants Margaret to be the realtor. And immediately I go, okay, I know what his plan is here. I know what is going to happen with this almost immediately.
Same here, but it took a while to get there.
Yeah, and then he sort of
they build him. They give him a lot of character building before they get there, which is I was not expecting.
Yeah, and then he sort of takes control of the whole wedding planning thing. And he's like sort of implying suddenly that Margaret must not want the best for Anne's wedding because he's not willing to get the bigger cake. And overdo it. And he starts saying, well, I'll pay for the cake so we can get whatever kind of cake they want. And the wedding planner immediately is like, oh, well, yes, let me show you all of these options. And then they start walking around, looking at the area, thinking about what they want to do for the wedding and where they're envisioning the different band. And she's like, well, the quartet could go here. And he's like, why not make it a quintet? And immediately in this moment, I was like, Paul Dooley is like Fred Flintstone.
He is, and it's so great though. Like that's such a great line of just, I don't know. Like I never liked the characters in movies where like the wedding planner kind of bullies you into a wedding thing.
Yeah,
because I know enough people who have actually had weddings back in the day, and like, you're pretty conscious of your actual budget.
Yeah.
Like there's not somebody like, oh, you have to do this. But movies have it all the time.
Like, and they like guilt you into not doing it, or like into doing something that you are not prepared to do.
Right. And I'm a guy with this had a very, very not wedding. But like, God, his grabbing of the horns of this is pretty great, because he just goes overboard. And that line is, I love it. Why not a quintet?
Yeah. We'll just hire those guys that Nick made sing on the lawn.
That would have been they had showed up for the wedding. It would have been such a great scene and use of them.
It would have been a nice callback.
To a scene I didn't like.
Yeah. At the daycare, we get more of Ken and Mary. He kind of goes up
harassing her.
Yes. He chases her down, and he's like, hey, wait a minute. And he tries to apologize, and he's like, hey, you know what? I'll cook you dinner as an apology. At least he doesn't do what Nick did, which is demand that you take me to lunch. He's actually like, oh, hey, all right, I maybe overstepped. Let me cook you dinner, and if you don't like it, you can just leave. And she's like, okay, I can do that. Which is, yes, he still is kind of overstepping, but at least it's not as bad as Nick was in the second movie.
It's still a little bit of a, let me apologize to you by putting you in a situation
that's hard for you to get out of. Yeah.
Yes. Come into my house alone, a person you do not know.
Yeah, very true. If you want to do that, say, let me take you to dinner in a public place.
Right. The 90s hadn't learned that yet, which is kind of weird pre-internet dating.
Yeah. We get a new scene here where Margaret is taking Richard to see houses. They go to a house that he seems to like, and he says it's very big, and there's lots of room to bring over all the kids and have get-togethers and barbecues and stuff in the summer. And she's like, well, yes, it's a very beautiful house. And he's like, you're beautiful. And then it's like, okay. And then he apologizes. And she kind of stands her ground, and she's like, you missed the best years of your kids' lives. You missed them growing up. You missed getting to be a part of that. And then she's like, and it's like a serious moment. It's like, okay, cool. She's standing up to this guy who walked out on her and who conceivably she hasn't seen in a very long time, and kind of telling him how he fucked up. And then it like turns on a dime where she's like, well, I have to go see the wedding planner. And he's like, well, great, I'll come too.
Like in real life, this would end their whole interactions.
Yeah, it would just be done. They would not talk to each other anymore.
It's like, this is now too awkward, and I know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I have a much larger husband.
Yes. In many ways, because Ted Shackelford is packing some heat.
Well, man, the guy is incredibly fertile.
Yeah, Ted Shackelford's Hackelford is hanging loose.
You tried. I appreciate that.
It's better than Rue McClanahan's mechanic plan.
I don't know about that. I still want you to make some art for that to put on the Twitter.
Margaret is so they go to the wedding planner, and Nick and Anne are there, and they're kind of fighting about this dress that she seems to want. It's incredibly gaudy, and when she's wearing it later, it does not look good on her.
It looks not her style, because
No.
we know her style. Also, the mannequin is terrifying. I don't want this one coming to life by a magic cat.
Yeah. It's such a weird looking dress. It is very sort of Madonna-y in a way. Like, it's got a weird plunging neckline and all these sort of like sparkly studs all over it. It just looks very strange.
I think that's the joke of it. It's
It
like
is.
she's getting the most gaudy one possible. It just Anne's been married twice, which she'll tell you many times in this movie. It doesn't seem, yeah, she's caught up in the moment with her dad, but like she wouldn't pick this dress.
It doesn't seem like it, but she's kind of obsessed now because she says that I've been married twice, but never in a wedding dress. And so she really is set on having kind of a more traditional wedding dress. I guess all of her previous marriages have been in like the courthouse or justice of the peace or whatever. So she really wants something that is more traditional. Nick isn't super happy with the choice. He also, fuck him in this moment where he's like, well, maybe you could get it if you could wear it more than once. And it's like, nobody wears their wedding dress more than once. Dumbass. Like they get it and they hang it up and that's it. Like you're not taking it out to dinner.
Oh, maybe he's hoping they could fuck in it.
That's probably what it is.
I mean, that's probably what it is, right? He's an awful person. But he's not much of a character in this movie, thankfully.
No.
Because I still don't like him, and every time he reminds me of why how he set up with her, it makes me angry.
Yeah. Richard comes in and he's like, if my daughter wants this dress, she'll have it. And so he's like, we'll take it. Put it on the gold card, which is a thing people like to say. And
now we have platinum cards.
Yes, exactly. Or we have black cards.
Oh, that's right.
American
Magnum
Express
card.
Black.
American Express Magnum.
I have the Diners Club Diamond card.
I have a Discover card.
Diners Club Diamond card. Accepted at all A and P's.
I love looking at gas station pumps when it's not cold outside, and they have like the list of all the credit cards they accept, and you're like, the fuck are half of these that aren't the main three?
Maestro. That's one of them, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm like, what is going on?
What is the Maestro card? Do you have to be like you have to be a shadowy figure behind the scenes orchestrating all kinds of devious deeds to get the Maestro card?
And before anyone messages in, and I know they won't actually, but like I know that some of them are like, there are networks that combined that like say like, hey, you can use this card in this country, and they're all part of this network, so they all work everywhere. I know that, but Maestro card is funny.
Yes, it's very funny. I'm going to get the conductor card.
I feel like MasterCard is barely a thing anymore.
It really isn't. I think the main three are Visa, American Express, and Discover, and I think that's kind of it.
Apple Card, a different kind of card.
That's coming. It's here, but it's coming.
I mean, they cut that Apple symbol out with a laser, so it's a fancier card.
Oh yeah, very very fancy. So this is when we have the big dinner at Ken's place. Mary's there, and they kind of talk about how dating is difficult and how it's hard to get back on the market. And she's like, well, I was never really on the market because I was a nun for 8 years. And she says that she wanted a baby and that Maggie's father was willing to accommodate.
And that's it.
That's
the backstory.
We never find out. Like, if they had done a fourth movie, it could have been that dude shows up and is like, hey, you know what? I know I said that I just wanted it to be a simple thing and I was fine with you doing it on your own, but I realized that I actually would like to be involved in my daughter's life, and is that possible? That could be a story.
I want to know who's this guy who's like, you know what? I will have sex with this nun.
Yeah, what is that guy's deal?
You know what? I know she's a nun, but she's having this moment where she wants to break her vows for have a child. And I've really wanted to nail a nun. So I'm going to help her get pregnant and then walk away, because that'll be something that will never come back to me.
It's so weird to think about that. Like, is this a guy who's just really into like if this were made later,
yes,
it would be a like Craigslist hookup or something, like looking to fuck a nun. Well, that's the guy for me.
Or like she contacted the people at Pornhub and like, who's clicking on nuns tab
yeah
most? But yeah, it's so odd considering it doesn't fit with her character at
Yeah, I
all
mean,
that she
that guy
did
just finished
this.
watching Nuns Buns 3, and then he got that message from her.
Or he's really enjoyed Nuns on the Run, even though they were dudes. Um, there is, but like
Hey, man, it don't matter as long as they got that habit on.
Yeah, they've got a habit of watching that movie to completion. But like,
Man, this first half of this tape on Nuns on the Run is really warped and worn out. Must be rewinding it a bunch.
When we come in on this scene, they're having the dinner. Like for a TV movie, the table is comically small, and they're just like they're too close, and he's just kind of staring down at her, dressed like Richard Marx. This is where he's at the most like feathered hair with the most white shirt and a black vest.
Yeah,
and it's like it's so awkward because he's just like almost predatory looking at her, and she just is just like, I'm in this house with so much built-ins. Like he's got built-in everything.
Yes, he does.
Like, who is
he probably made him
There's
himself because he's a carpenter.
I guess. I think he'd have a simple house in a big garage.
After she kind of drops the bombshell about her baby and the father, he sort of awkwardly gets up and he's like, well, I got to go check on my kid. And it, of course, seems like, all right, well, this is weird. I need to get out of here. But it's not that at all. He is legitimately going to check on his kid. And she feels weird, and she goes to throw out their food. And I thought he was going to come back and be like, hey, what are you doing? But she notices in the garbage a takeout container. And
steamed hams.
Well, these clearly have grill marks on them, Ken. Can you please explain that? Did you cook them on your motorcycle?
I mean, it's a Syracuse.
So he comes back, and she kind of seems to find this very charming that he got takeout instead of actually cooking, and that he wanted to impress her, I guess. And he's like, well, I got home late and I didn't have a chance to cook, and I wanted, he's like, I wanted to impress you, kind of. He doesn't say that, but it's sort of implied. And they have their first kiss, but she kind of gets weird about it and she leaves. And, we can already tell, like, it's going to work out just fine for them. Like, they're going to be happy together.
Yeah, like this is the couple. They will be together in the family photo at the end.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm glad that they kept that going at the end of the movie.
I wish they had freeze framed on the entire family looking down at the POV shot from the casket. That should have been the last shot of the movie. What was with that?
What if that's where the movie ended? They had to split Mother of the Bride into two films to keep it all, to capture it all. So that's where they end the second one, and you're left hanging for a year till the next one comes out. So they're still in the wedding planning stages. There's a lot of wedding planning in this movie. And they're trying to figure out who to cut because they have too many guests on the list, and they need to cut people. And John comes in, and he's kind of a bit standoffish because Richard is there, and it's reasonable for him to be a little miffed that the ex-husband of your wife is just hanging around, even though they have children together, but he hasn't been there ever, and so it's very weird to just have a guy show up in your life who is intimate with your wife and is the father of all these children, and it's like, John knows immediately what Richard is doing, and this is when Anne kind of pulls John aside, and she's like, Dad being here and helping with the wedding, I would like him to walk me down the aisle instead. And John is like, yeah, sure, but you can totally tell he's kind of upset about this.
I thought we were going to have more of the John feels ignored storyline, but it kind of goes away.
Yeah.
To just John is pissed storyline.
He's
even that doesn't really go anywhere very long.
No, I mean we get a good scene with him and Richard in a bit, but yeah,
Richard's a real dick.
Yeah, I mean, yes, but John says it's not a big deal, but then Margaret comes up and she's like, I feel like we've been kind of distant, and Since the baby, in these 2 years since this baby was born, we've been kind of distant. We really haven't had intimate times, and we should find some time. But then Richard shows up, and like the true dick he is, he cock blocks that.
He shows up at night. Always a good saying.
And this is the scene we already alluded to with Anne and Mary getting fitted for their dresses. And again, the wedding dress is hideous on Anne. It does not look good. I guess it's not totally fitted to her yet, but it still just looks very bad. And this is when Anne brings up that Ken probably has a motorcycle gang that will force Mary to get drunk and make out with all of them. And while she's saying all this stuff, we keep getting shots of Beatrice, the wedding planner, being like scandalized, her eyebrows going up and her mouth falling open.
I thought she was going to swallow one of the pins and die.
Or have a heart attack hearing about this motorcycle gangbang.
Maybe she's having some flashbacks to her own days back in 1920. And horse-drawn bicycles.
Anne asks if they've done it yet, and this gets the biggest reaction from Beatrice. And Mary's like, no, of course not. And there's not a lot of carryover in this. It's just scene after scene after scene of things happening. John and Dennis get home from their baseball game.
I love that they're softball buds now.
Yeah, they're best buddies.
They're drinking buddies. They're baseball buddies. Like, they're on the same team. When did this happen?
I don't know. And then later when they have the bachelor party and John is there, it's very strange.
He's just one of the boys with them now, and he hated them last movie.
He's basically the same age as Dennis in that moment.
I mean, they can't be that much different in age, Tom Shackelford, whoever this Dennis is.
Yeah, no,
they can't.
The Dennis in this movie is Brett Cullen, who probably I know best as one of the guys. He was in like one episode of Lost, and that's where I remember him from most. He played Bruce Wayne's dad in the Joker movie last year.
I still haven't seen that.
Yeah, you're fine. Just avoid it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just not that hard to avoid it.
No, I think you're totally fine. It's a waste of time. Don't at me. He is exactly 10 years younger than Ted Shackelford.
Man, he is. The road has owned that guy.
They're about they're 10 years apart. So they come home, they're sweaty, they're in their baseball uniforms or softball uniforms, and they're like, hey, we're home. And then we hear Richard in the kitchen. He's like, I'm in here. He puts on this like false high voice, and he says all the girls are out trying on their dresses, and John's like, well, we're here now, so you can go. And they get into a bit of an argument, and Dennis realizes that Richard is having some cocktails while he's sitting there with the children, feeding them. And John has an excellent line here, which is, why don't you find the door and use it? And it's like, all right, Biff Tannen.
It's like the second part has to be a pun on door. It has to be.
But it's also just like an instructional thing. It's like a tip in a video game. Find the door and use it.
Yeah, but I mean, this Dennis is just not. He's not a wordsmith.
But they kind of get into a bit of an argument, and Richard's like, hey, I can be here, and I want to be with my family. And John's like, I know what you're doing. I know what this is all about. You don't really belong here, and you should take off. And then as he's leaving, baby Robert, he flings spaghetti at Richard's arm and laughs about it. And Richard just seems totally humiliated.
I thought he was going to hit the kid for a second.
And John
He
gives
has no biological connection to this one baby.
no, not really. And then John sort of gives baby Robert some props for what he did.
I'm surprised Dennis didn't give him a high five because they're brothers.
Yeah, I mean, they should have. That would have been really funny. This next scene, it's when Ken rides up to pick up Mary. He meets Margaret, and he has a helmet for Mary to ride.
Yeah, he's got a helmet for her.
And they ride off, and Margaret has a line here, and I wonder if it was improvised, because she says, if she gets a tattoo, I'm killing myself. And John laughs so uproariously and organically that it feels so genuine that maybe she just said that off the cuff and he wasn't expecting it.
It does feel out of tone with the rest of the movie as far as they're not acting.
Yeah.
And there's no reason for her to say that.
No. But it's very funny. But it's very funny. And I think that's why I laugh too. And I think when he laughs, it just feels so organic. Like he was not expecting her to say that. Or he was expecting her to say something. Maybe it was like the director was like, the director was like, Rue, just say whatever when she rides off on the motorcycle. Just say something about how you're worried or whatever. And she just said that. She just said that line just at the moment. And it was just very funny.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. Rue is great. There's I know we made a whole month around her, but she's very good.
No, she's excellent in this. So Margaret and Anne are going to a fancy hotel restaurant to see Richard, and they make a joke that I was hoping they would make when the guy says it, but the maitre d' comes up and he says, "Oh, you're here. We have a reservation. Please walk this way." And then they make a joke about it, like, I can't walk that way, and then proceed to mimic the way that the guy is walking. It's so hacky.
All of a sudden, the movie's a cartoon.
Yes. And they go into this big banquet hall, and Richard's there, and he says, we should do it here in this room so we can invite everybody. We don't have to cut the guest list. I've already booked it. I also already booked a chapel. We can do all of this stuff here, and that way we don't have to cut anything, and it can be a big, giant ceremony, and it can be the best wedding that Anne deserves. And Anne is totally into it. And then Richard is like, well, when it comes time for the first dance, and they ask the parents of the bride to show up, we can show them how it's done. And then they kind of start dancing with each other a little bit, and she pulls away, and immediately I was like, oh, he's trying to get back into their lives permanently.
Yeah, this was where it's clear. It was really clear that he was just trying to worm his way back in, as a full member of the family. Yeah. Which, I don't know. I still doesn't make me feel great that he dies.
No, I mean they go home. He takes Margaret home, and he's like, I'm having a really great time being involved in the wedding planning and being around the kids, and he's like, I'm gonna take that house that you showed me. I'm gonna sign the papers. I think that'd be best to be around. And he's like, we should go get a drink to celebrate. And she's like, I don't know. And then he grabs her and he kisses her, and he's like, we'll always have that spark. And it's one of those things where you're like, oh boy.
Yeah. Once again, this should be the last time he interacted with anybody. Okay, that's inappropriate. If he was a younger man and she was a younger character in this series, that would have worked.
Yeah. Oh, I thought you were going to say if he was a younger man, she might drop John.
She might have, but no, every other male character has been this forward and creepy, and it has worked.
Yeah, that is true. But she's still very hesitant, and she kind of knows what's going on. Mary and Ken have a scene here where they're washing a car. Nothing really happens, so it's not really worth getting into.
He does say to her, I'm falling for you,
Oh,
Mary,
yeah,
which is
okay,
an
fair.
odd thing for an adult male to say.
Yeah. That's a high school phrase when you're too scared to say I love you and you don't really know what that means. So you're like, I think I'm falling for you, man.
Yeah. And instead they have her being the one who's like, I don't know what this feeling is. And they really don't go anywhere with it. So
Well, yeah, they just have a moment where they spray each other with water hoses, and it's very cute.
then they have the bridal shower, which is the most floral scene you'll ever see without actual flowers.
It's super fucking lame, too. They're playing these lame-ass party games.
I thought it was going to be ruined by Richard.
Yeah, I thought so, too. But no, in fact, Mary, the former nun, has hired a male stripper. And this guy comes in dressed like a cop, which makes sense because Anne's marrying a police officer. In fact, this is I think the first time ever in history that a stripper dressed like a policeman made sense.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, it was plot wise made sense. So finally,
that means
an okay thing.
I guess that means that the stripper that Dennis hired is like a woman at the end of her rope with frayed nerves.
Probably, really, honestly.
Well, yes. And then the guy comes out and he starts dancing around, and the song that they're playing is crazy. The song is like, "Get crazy, turn it up and make it hot." And it's like about to turn into a fucking clothed female naked male video up in here because this guy is getting down to these tiny little black shorts. And Margaret,
I thought they would suggest that he was stripping. He strips.
Oh yeah, no, he gets pretty low, and Margaret's like, "How far does he go?"
Margaret knows the game.
Yeah, she's ready for it. It's been a while for her and John, so she's got to get it where she can. And we cut immediately to the bachelor party, where
there are so many vests.
There are lots of vests,
so many vests.
But Nick. I realize now that the stripper that they've hired is dressed like she has like a wedding dress type outfit on because she has a garter on that she makes Nick take off, and it's like, that's weird, right?
I thought she was supposed to be a nurse to a degree.
Oh, is she a nurse? Okay, well, she just has the garter, so I assumed, because she's wearing like frilly white, so I was like, it could be a nurse, could be a bride.
Nurse Bride. So that's my new show, Nurse Bride. Yeah, TLC this fall. 79 episodes in 2 weeks.
She's a nurse. She's always having to postpone her wedding because an emergency comes up.
79 times.
It's a reality show.
Well, there's lots of need for nurses right now.
Well, it's like, I mean, I was kind of used to it because it's happened like 49 times before that she stood me up at the altar to deal with some crazy car accident or like a person with a gunshot wound. But, I was hoping that this time the 49th would make it happen.
You have to admit, this is a very good name for a show and concept for a show.
Absolutely. It could happen.
You know what? It has happened.
Probably.
I waited too long. It's already happened.
I like that once the stripper, she seems to expose her breasts and then it's over.
That's it. And once you strip, it's over. That's.
But the funny part was that I didn't realize that there was more to it. So when she stops and the song ends, it seems like all the guys just file out of the room.
They've saw her breasts. What else is there to see?
They just all leave. They're still there, but it just feels like everyone's like, well, party's over.
I mean, that one guy with the mustache probably stayed in there.
There's a ton of characters in the background of this scene.
And I want them each to have their own movie, especially mustache guy. He's got this like, it's like an inch worth, like his centipede across his upper lip.
Like, as I commented when you sent me the photo of this guy, he sort of looks like a deflated John Cena wearing a disguise.
And if you didn't want a TV show or three-part movie based on that description, I don't know what's wrong with you.
And this is when Richard shows up here. We're at Denny's apartment, and Richard shows up here with a couple of women, and he's like, I got some stuff for my new son-in-law. And he's obviously very drunk. And he tells Nick, these women will do whatever you want. Anything.
This is what, so he's been a creep with Margaret, but it's his ex-wife, and that's what ex-husbands do. And we've had the suggestion that he's a drunk based on having a cocktail, but not being drunk by the kids. And this was an escalation.
Yes.
Like they skipped 4 scenes to him being hammered and showing up with sex workers.
Yeah, he comes in and he's like all over the place, and then John is like, he goes up and he's like, did he pay you already? And they're like, yeah. And Richard's like, they're not for you. And he's like, here you go. He gives them both some money and he sends them on their way. And
he makes some smart ass remark about buy cards for your mother.
Oh yeah, go give your mother a call or something like that. Yeah, way to pass some judgment, John. And Richard's mad because he's like, hey, I paid good money for them. And Denny's upset because he's like, you brought hookers into my home. And he almost punches his dad. And then, this is the silliest thing. Richard goes into like insane histrionics and is wandering down the hallway going, my own son hates me. My own son hates me.
If you think about it, he's never seen really sober again.
No, not really.
So Dennis killed him.
Kind of. I mean, he is kind of responsible. I guess like that would have been an interesting thing if they wanted to play up on that, like the drama of it.
Because it's funny that he's dead.
Well, yes. This is when everything sort of starts unraveling with Richard. Margaret gets a phone call. We don't really hear the other side of it, but we keep hearing her say things like, money and insufficient funds and other things. And then John comes in and she says, the check, the escrow check that he wrote for the house, it bounced. And John suddenly becomes like fucking Sherlock Holmes or something. He's like, wait a minute, something else could be wrong here. Grab your keys. And they jet off to the wedding planner and find out that basically nothing was paid for. The card was over the limit. When Beatrice tried to contact Richard about it, he sent a check, and then she goes, and boing, boing, boing.
And then she, without contacting Annie or Margaret, sold the dress to somebody else.
Yeah.
And she's happy that she did. She thinks it's funny.
Yeah, she says, "Oh, I already the gown was sold to another person, and I already canceled the flowers and the cake." And you can tell in this moment that Margaret wants to pull out that uppercut magic that she showcased in the first movie.
I just have so much trouble. Like, this is a person they invited into their house to make plans for.
Yes,
something that's very important.
She was hired by them to do a job, and she basically was like, "Well, oh well."
Like, they hired her for one job. She basically helped Richard scam them by like, she followed Richard's like trying to spend money and like, yes, he's trying to spend money. I'll help him override this entire situation. What? His money bounce? I'm taking it on this other part of the family who never wanted any of this to begin with. It's like, I hope you die. But yeah, so the wedding is falling apart. And then a scene I almost didn't see coming happened when they're in bed together. It's nighttime, middle of the night. It's a thunderstorm. The thunder's rolling, just similar to a Garth Brooks song. And the lightning strikes. And Richard comes in to their house, which was open? Or he had keys to?
No, he's with Mary. They arrive.
Oh, that's right.
And he's very drunk, and he's screaming about wanting to see his granddaughter. And Mary goes in and wakes up Margaret. And I was like, where's John? But we find out later he's in the study doing work. I don't know what he's doing. What is his job? He's writing his sermon for Sunday. And it's pouring rain outside. And she tells Richard, she's like, wait downstairs. But he's not taking it very seriously. He's very drunk and he's kind of shouting. And they're like, just go downstairs, be quiet. And so he stumbles down the stairs, and then we hear a big loud crash, and he gets knocked out, and he's on the ground. And They all run down. John comes out of the study, and they're like, well, oh, what are we going to do? And Mary is like, call 411. And Margaret's like, no, that's information. And I was like, is that an improv line? Because it's so silly.
It's so silly that I thought, like, oh, he's just knocked out. He's dead.
Yeah, and they're like, oh, we need a first aid kit. And John's like, no, I don't think a first aid kit's needed. He's dead. And Margaret's like, what? And she's like, he's dead. And then she's like, well, this is going to make the wedding. And it's like a commercial break. It's like, this is a laugh line. We're going out on a joke.
Their fathers came back in their life, tried to do something, fell apart, is now dead. Like, he was just out with Mary that night.
Yeah.
He's now dead.
Well, and she's the only one who kind of has a problem with it. Like, is conflicted by it.
Like, Annie's bigger problem is she's not going to get the wedding she wants. Andrew is just like, of course it happened this way. No one's like looking into the legality of the fact that he died in their house.
Yeah, no, I was wondering how that was going to play out, but it never does.
Because his funeral is a joke. His entire funeral. So we're 1 hour in, and finally Andrew shows up, and he greets Denny. And I wish he had said, "No, Denny V3." Like,
hey, you're looking different. Did you get a new haircut?
I wish they made some joke where, like, all the kids are the same. They cast a different dentist every
it would have been
time.
it would have been funny in the second one if when he saw him, he's like, "Oh, you've been working out, huh?"
Just some acknowledgement that that one single character keeps changing.
Yeah. And yeah, we get to the funeral. Andrew arrives and he says, yeah, Dad got his daughter's plane tickets for the wedding, but they bounced. The checks bounced. So that means that he's been in contact with their father at some point, whether that's regular contact or just recent contact for the wedding. It's unclear, but he's definitely been talking to him. So he knew he was back into the picture and didn't try to come out sooner.
And then is
he still painting boats in Florida?
I don't know. And like they act like, I'm so glad you got here. Andrew's like, yeah, I got here. He's my father and I love him.
Yeah, it's very weird because we don't see them together. So how do we know that that's their relationship?
It feels like he knows his dad better than the rest of them. Like maybe the dad's visited him more often.
Maybe.
Because he was gone for 10 years himself.
Yeah, that is true. So maybe they had some contact during that time. It's like, very strange.
He's utterly like not surprised like they are about everything that happened. But he's still like, yeah, but it's Dad. I love him.
Yeah.
And like in a way that they're like, the rest of them are like kind of like, I can't believe this guy died on us.
And
the point they're like, then Dennis goes, look at him up there on the top of the hill where he's being lowered into a grave. We had to climb up to him.
Yeah, okay. So Margaret says that they need to wait to tell Anne about all the wedding drama until they bury Richard. She's like, let's bury him first.
I was shocked that this hadn't happened yet.
Then we'll tell her. And then we get this comical scene where they have to trudge up this muddy hill to get to the grave, and they're sinking into it, and there's these cartoon sound effects of like a bubbling cauldron.
And they get to the very top where the funeral's happening, and it's being presided over by Cliffy from Cheers. And they argue over who's supposed to talk, because Dennis wants Andrew to talk. Andrew's like, you're the fucking oldest. Go up and talk about your fucking dead father.
But it should be Andrew because he seems to know him better than everybody else.
And then like Dennis's speech is like, he led a life that taught us to not be like him. This guy is an example of how to be the wrong person, and now he's dead. The end. And then I don't even know what happened. Like his tech bounce on his casket holder because it just falls off the.
Well, okay, it falls because they ask a family member to place a rose on the casket. So Mary gets up, puts a rose on the casket, and then the holder breaks and the casket falls right into the earth.
Makes no sense. It's played as a laugh line.
It's absolutely a laugh.
they all stare down like somehow maybe like Richard's going to get out of the casket.
I was hoping we were going to get the reverse shot looking down into the hole with the casket broken open and his dead body falling out of it.
With a scene where we have a POV of every actor in the series looking down into the fucking casket. And I'm like, why is it so funny that Richard's dead?
I don't know, but they definitely play it as a laugh. It's like this bad thing happened. This guy came, he maybe wanted to do right, but he just couldn't help himself, and things went bad, and now he's dead, and we're going to play it as a joke. So it did make me laugh when the casket fell, though.
It did. I mean, but it was. I'll tell you right now, it was unexpected.
I mean, anytime a casket falls, it's kind of funny.
It was like, are we watching 6 Feet Under?
This is when Anne finds out that basically her dream wedding has fallen apart, and she does not take it well in a way that doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Like at the start, remember, she's the one who at the very start wanted the smallest wedding possible. She is not. She's the least materialistic person in the entire cast, and she is so stunned that her father, who is dead, didn't have this money. Because in theory, also, there's a chance that even if he had the money, now being dead, would not. It would be tied up in things.
Yeah, maybe that's the case. Like, even if he had the money and died, maybe there'd be problems with them being able to get the funds to pay for the stuff.
Right, like his credit card would no longer work because who are they going to bill? Like, stuff like that. Like she should, like, it should have occurred to her at some point, oh, my father's death may cause problems for this. Above and beyond, like, the fact that all his stuff bounces. But she is so upset at this wedding that she originally did not want. And this is a character who is not materialistic and who is not this character. She gives back Nick the ring.
Yeah, she calls the wedding off. She says, I've done bad weddings before and I don't want to do it again.
It's so out of character. Out of character.
But as this movie has been doing time and again, they end it on a joke because she runs out and Margaret goes, well, she didn't take that well.
And then the very next scene, Margaret and her are walking downstairs in the morning and they're laughing together.
Well, we get one break in between, which is Mary and Ken out riding on his motorcycle, and now Mary loves motorcycles. She wants a motorcycle, and Ken's like, all right, I'll get you one. We'll fix it up. And she's really into Ken now, and he's like, I love you. And then she asks him to go inside, and he's like, are you sure? And then they go inside, and they do it.
Bum, bum, bum. Fourth movie, Two Babies of a Bride.
Yes, but you're right. The next scene, they break up. There is a small scene separating this, and then the next scene, Margaret and John are getting Anne and Nick back together.
Like Annie and Margaret come down the stairs, and they're like arm in arm. They're laughing together. And it's like she was literally furious at everybody a second ago, and John's like, I brought Nick, and she's like, you brought him here, and he's like, I love you. I don't care about the wedding. And she's like, oh, and she's doing eye acting like crazy, like Anne the actor is, because her name's actually Anne as well. It's just her eyes are bugging out in every direction, and I'm like, what? Stop that! And then she's like, they're like, I love you, and she's like, oh, okay.
Well, yeah,
like,
it's like
we'll do the original wedding in the backyard.
Yeah,
oh,
John basically says, like, if you walk away from this relationship, you're letting all your exes and your father make a decision for you. Which is like, okay.
Kicking dirt on that grave that they just dug.
Yeah, and she says that she's scared of failing again, and Nick's like, you've never failed me before, and I never have any doubts, and they get back together, and they're like, well, we've got 7 days to put a wedding together.
What they should have done is found some guy who killed a dog, made him...
Made him pose as Richard.
There's something.
I thought that's what you were going to say, that he poses as Richard, and then he, I see. I forgot all about Best Friend from Heaven for a minute.
Hey, the patrons in theory would have listened to that episode, so I thought I could reference it.
Yeah, no, that's you're all right. They need to find a guy who murdered a dog and make him do a bunch of errands to get this perfect wedding. This scene is great because Margaret goes, she pulls out her old wedding dress and she's like, well, we'll get this for Anne. And then she overhears John on the phone. I love this because he's talking in a way that there's no doubt what he is talking about, but it's in that very sort of movie way where we have to let the audience know what he's talking about specifically, even though he would not talk to a real person like this. He's like, I need to pull the money from my IRA to pay for Anne's wedding. He says that sentence.
Yeah, that's... I don't know. It's so weird.
And all the kids are home now, and they're all decorating the backyard, and they put on a cover of I Will Survive and start goofing around and dancing, and then John and Margaret show up, and they start dancing, and Margaret's like, we just might pull all this off.
Yeah, I think they might, because that's the movie.
And then we get a scene that didn't need to be in this movie. We did not need strife between Mary and Ken.
It's too late in the movie for it.
Yes.
And it's resolved immediately.
Yeah, Mary goes to Ken's. That's what this movie is, though. It is setting up a problem. There's a scene between it, and then the next scene after that, they fix the problem. Because this is exactly what happened with Anne and Nick. They broke up. There's a scene. Then they're back together. And Mary and Ken, there's a misunderstanding. Mary's upset. There's a scene. The next scene, Ken shows up and they make up. But she shows up at Ken's place. There's a woman there. Her name is Francine. And she says, I'm Ken's wife. And Mary is kind of caught off guard by this. And she runs off and she's really upset. And we have a scene here before they get back together of John and Nick. They've been outside fixing things up for the wedding. They come in and they see that Anne has made a chocolate wedding cake because that's what Nick wanted. So she is, giving him the kind of cake he wants, which is very nice of her. And they have this affectionate moment where they're kind of lovey-dovey. And John is really put off by this, which is weird considering that he is a sex maniac, as we learned in the second movie.
He's, like, always PDAing in the second movie. This one, he's like, no, you guys aren't old enough for this.
And Anne is telling Mary that she should take Ken's calls, but Mary's like, no, I don't want to. But it doesn't matter because Ken roars up on his motorcycle. And he's like, hey, it's a big misunderstanding. I haven't seen Francine for 2 years. I didn't tell you that I was married because I didn't think it mattered. But now I'm in love with you. And so I tracked down Francine to make her sign divorce papers, which doesn't explain why she's in his house taking a nap.
No, it never does because this movie doesn't have time to figure out the details of what they just introduced and then close the chapter on immediately.
It doesn't have time to do that, but it does have time to show off this kick-ass leather jacket that says Pretty Mama on the back of it.
When did he get this made?
I don't know. He went home. Francine was there. She was like, hey, some woman named Mary showed up here and she seemed upset. And he's like, oh shit. She probably thinks we're back together. Let me go to the boardwalk and get this leather jacket airbrushed and then go by her house.
My theory is this was Francine's jacket because she was the original Pretty Mama because she's the mama of his child.
He got
he's
that
like,
in
get
the
out of
divorce
here.
settlement.
And she left her. He threw her out before she got her jacket. And he's like, I'll just give this to Mary instead.
She'll never know.
I mean, she's just danced to "I Will Survive," so she's probably in a better mood now.
Yeah, and she throws the jacket on.
I fucking hated that scene so much.
I did too. It sucked.
I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that song for years.
No, it's also not a very good cover of that song either.
No, it is not.
Yeah, she throws the jacket on. They go for a ride. There's actually a really funny bit of Margaret saying, Mary, you're in a dress. And so she does this very exaggerated thing where she grabs the back of her dress through her legs and pulls it up like she's wearing a diaper and then crawls on the back of the motorcycle.
It's not like she's not wearing thick white tights underneath there that are really shiny because this is 1993. And everyone's dressed like an American Girl doll.
And it's finally the day of the wedding. Nick is out greeting people. Andrew hasn't yet arrived with the girls, which I thought was going to be a thing. Like I thought, are they going to have to send out a police escort and find Andrew or something? And he's like, no, he just shows up a little bit late.
Yeah, he's like, I'll be back later. I'm going to pick up the girl at the airport. Like, then why did you go about? Why did you set up that the kids wouldn't be in the movie? And then they are, and it is the same kids.
Yeah, it's the same kids. They just, I guess, could only get them for a day. Anne kind of freaks out for a second and runs outside and asks John to give her away. And he's like, yes, of course, I'm honored. And if I ever, is this the movie where he says, if I had a daughter, I'd want her to be like you or something? I can't remember. He says that in one of these movies, and I think it's this one.
Well, it couldn't be the first one because he hated the kids in the first one. And he hated the kids for most of the second one, too.
Yeah, that's true. And they finally have the ceremony. The opening processional music is Green Sleeves.
So the two babies come
Christmas
in.
in July.
Yes. It's Christmas in July. This is not a Christmas movie like the second one. First one? One of the ones.
Second one.
But the second one. So we have these two babies come down. It's a flower girl and the ring bearer, Robert and Maggie, who are not in the movie basically ever besides like two scenes.
Yeah.
Considering that they're the titular babies of the second movie, but there's not. They aged them up and then didn't use them, which is weird.
Yeah.
So they have these two children. Well, what child is this place?
Exactly. That's what the audience is asking. What child is this? Because they should only be like 3 months old.
And finally, they play a wedding processional, and we have a wedding, and we have one last big family picture.
Well,
Nick brings his. Okay.
Well, I was just gonna say, and during the ceremony, Anne tells the minister to skip everything except get to the questions in case she faints, so she knows that she got to all the important stuff. Which,
thank you. That made the movie a lot quicker.
More weddings should do, honestly.
Yeah, I don't need the rest of it. Especially if you're not going to take place at a church. You don't have to do the whole shebang.
Yeah, everyone is there for the reception. That is the thing about weddings. We deal with the ceremony because that's what you want to do, but that shit should be 20 minutes tops so that we can get to the reception, we can drink, we can eat, we can celebrate with you, because that's what we want to do. We don't want to sit and watch your grandmother walk down the aisle for 20 minutes. We want to get that over with and then get to the party.
I'm hoping and assuming that as the current generation of great aunts and grandmothers are moved out from, of natural causes, not of the horrible viruses that are going around currently, that the next generation understands this better and don't want that long thing, and no one wants to give it.
Yeah. I mean, I say this as a person who will probably never get married.
I want everyone to track predictocast relationship mood Josh from episode 1 to now of him getting, every time we bring it up, he gets a little bit darker about it.
I mean, I'm just being realistic.
Everyone out there, I have known Josh for several years. He's a fine young man, very handsome. You should.
Oh, well, thank you.
The whole audience should be dating Josh Hollis.
And now we get to the way that all of these films have closed, with a photo of the whole family.
2 photos for no good reason.
Yeah, really, the second one is kind of like they could have just done it once. They don't need to do it twice. I don't know why they do.
I thought they'd do a funny pose a second time, like make faces or something.
Yeah,
same
but
picture
they
as the
don't.
first one. In the end, just one family, 3 Dennises. One family.
3 Dennises. Mary has Ken and Tig come and be in the photo as well.
Tig, by the way, is his babe, is Ken's kid.
Yeah.
We've never mentioned him in the entire episode. He's not a character.
He's not a character. He's barely in. I think we see him 2 times. We see him once on the motorcycle, and then we see him in this photo. I don't think we see him ever any other time in the movie. And Margaret leans over to to John and is like, we'll need more dining room chairs because the holidays are going to be crazy.
And that sets up for like Christmas of the Bride. But we don't get it.
I would have loved more of these movies, honestly. Like, let's see how many more times they're going to recast Dennis. I want a different Dennis in every film. I wonder if it was a running joke at this point. They were like, we could get back the guy from the second movie, but it's actually funnier if we just hire a third guy.
Like, I'm not like, it's hard to complain when a movie gets 3 pieces. Like, that's quite a bit more than most would get. But I feel like if something was this successful as far as like audience and cast chemistry,
these must have been insanely successful for them to do 3 TV movies.
And like I've read, like when we look up the old articles from the early 90s about these, which are amazingly kept in amber on the internet, they were successful. And if it was today and the budget was within reason, which it would be by today's standards, like on Lifetime or Hallmark, I could see this getting 5 to 7 movies, like one every year.
Yeah, I mean they just did 3 of those. The thing that I can remember the most is those 3 Christmas Prince movies on Netflix.
Yeah, and everyone loves those. And those are terrible.
Yeah, but like they had a pretty consistent run of, you know, continuing a story, and I was like, I would have liked that for this. Like by this point, you know, this is the 3rd movie, and like I like these characters, and I would like to see more things. Like we need like a love child of Dennis to show up. Like, you know,
yes, we need the family at the beach. They go to Florida.
Yes, we need a Florida movie. We need some wacky thing that happens in Florida. That would be amazing. Like I could have used more story for sure.
I mean, like it's on CBS, not ABC. They couldn't go to Disney World. They go to Busch Gardens. Busch Gardens is closed. Everyone upset about that. That happened. By the way, all the internet articles, Busch Gardens did close. It's closed. You can't go to Busch Gardens right now. Anyone.
And with that sad note, I think it's time to wrap up this episode.
Insanely long. This episode is insanely long because we needed just to distract ourselves.
No, I loved talking about this. It took my mind off of the current things that are going on, and you know, I'm hoping that even though we're recording this a couple weeks before it'll drop, things will not have gotten any worse by the time this comes out. If they have, well, thank you, dear listener, for being a Patreon supporter. As always, we wouldn't do it without you, and we couldn't do it without you. And we hope that we're here next month to do it all over again. But until then, I've been Josh.
I've been Skinner.
And we predict you'll join us.
We have predicted you're going to join us. I predict that next time Josh will predict this again.
I was going to cut that out and fix that, but I can't now because of that joke.
That's why I do this every time.